The appraiser left his card on my kitchen counter. He must have thought I'd find it and be too confused to understand what it meant. I understood it perfectly. Let me take you back to how it all started. My name is Margaret. I am 74 years old, and I have lived in this house for 42 years. Robert and I bought it the year our son Daniel turned 4. We painted every room ourselves. We built the back fence together one hot August weekend, arguing cheerfully about whether posts or rails go in first. I still know the answer, and I was right. I planted that garden the first spring we lived here. Every rose bush, every boxwood hedge, every climbing hydrangea, every strand of the wisteria that now covers the entire back fence, all of it started as something small in my hands. Over 4 decades, I shaped that garden the way you shape a life. Slowly, with intention, and with far more patience than anyone gave me credit for. Robert passed 3 years ago. Quietly, the way he did everything. One Tuesday morning in March, and then he was gone. He left me the house, free and clear. He left me his old gardening gloves, folded in the drawer by the back door. He left me a good life to finish on my own terms. I thought our son Daniel understood that. I was wrong. It started small. These things always do. About 6 months after Robert's funeral, Daniel began what I came to call his helpful conversations. He would call on Sunday evenings, and we would talk about ordinary things for a while: his work, the grandchildren, the weather. And then, without fail, he would steer us toward the same subject. Had I thought about simplifying? Did I really need 4 bedrooms? There were some wonderful communities near him and Courtney, his wife. Very active. Very safe. He'd seen a brochure. I told him I was fine. I was more than fine. I had my garden, my book club, my neighbor Helen next door, my 3 days a week consulting for the County Parks Board. The house did not feel empty. It felt full, the way a place does when 42 years of living have soaked into the walls. I told him that. He would go quiet for a moment. Then he would say, "Mom, we just worry." I thanked him for worrying. I stayed right where I was. But something in those calls nagged at me. He wasn't asking questions. He was laying groundwork. I had raised Daniel myself, and I knew the difference. The following spring, Daniel and Courtney invited themselves for a long weekend. I was genuinely glad of it. I baked a lemon cake, put fresh flowers in the guest room, planned a nice dinner. I wanted things to be good between us. But Courtney spent most of Saturday walking through the house with her eyes slightly narrowed, the way you do when you are calculating something. She made a comment about the kitchen being original. She said the garden was a lot of upkeep for one person. She said it warmly, the way people say things they mean to sting. That evening after dinner, Daniel set down his wine glass and said he had been doing some research. He said there were developers very interested in this part of the county right now. He said land values in historic neighborhoods had risen considerably. He said maybe it was time to think about unlocking some of that value. I looked at him across the table, Robert, and I had eaten at for 4 decades. I said, "This is my home, Daniel." He said, "Of course it is, Mom. We're just thinking about your future." I smiled and I cleared the plates. I did not sleep well that night. But I did something I have always done when I cannot sleep. I got up and I went out to the garden in my bathrobe and my rubber boots, and I stood in the dark under the wisteria, and I thought. What I found 2 weeks later changed everything. I had given Daniel and Courtney a key to the house years ago, for emergencies. I had never imagined they would use it when I was not home. But on a Thursday in May, while I was at my book club, we were discussing a Marilynne Robinson novel and I had opinions, so I was there for 3 full hours. Someone let an appraiser into my house. I came home to find the card on my kitchen counter. Martin R. Holly's certified real estate appraiser. And below his name, a company name I did not yet recognize, Pinnacle Group Development, LLC. I sat down at the kitchen table for a long time. Then I got up and I did something Daniel would never expect me to do. I got on the internet. I have been using the internet since before Daniel owned a smartphone, but somehow my children have convinced themselves that technology and I are strangers. We are not strangers. Pinnacle Group Development had a website. They specialized in what they called estate land acquisition in historic residential neighborhoods. They purchased old houses, raised them, and built luxury condominiums. There were before and after photographs. The befores were homes like mine. The afters were glass and steel. I searched the company name with my address. Nothing public yet. But then I checked my consulting email account, the one attached to my park's board work, which Daniel did not know existed, and there was a message. It had been forwarded by accident to my address instead of his, a single letter different in our email handles. It was from a man named Greg Whitmore at Pinnacle Group. It confirmed a phone call with my son from the previous week and referenced a preliminary valuation and a projected timeline for, as they put it, estate transfer. Estate transfer. That was what my son and a developer were calling my home now. I read the email twice. I printed it. I put it in a folder in the drawer where I keep important papers, right next to Robert's will and my own. Then I went out to the garden. The wisteria was just beginning to open. I sat in the Adirondack chair Robert had painted green this summer before he got sick. I sat there until the light changed and the purple blooms above me went violet and then gray in the dusk. I thought about what Daniel was doing. I thought about why. I did not believe he was cruel, not at his core. I believed he was impatient. I believed Courtney had been whispering ideas in his ear about efficiency and practicality, and he had let himself be convinced that this was caring for me. He had looked at my life and decided it needed managing. He had looked at this house and seen money. I decided I was done being managed. I also decided I would not fight him the way he expected. I would not call and accuse. I would not give him the chance to reframe it, to say I had misunderstood, to make me the unreasonable one. I had learned something in 74 years. The most powerful thing a person can do is act quietly and completely, and let the results speak for themselves. I took the small notebook I keep in my cardigan pocket and I made a list. Right there in the gardens. And then I went inside and I slept very well. The first call I made the next morning was to Patricia Ackhaffer at the County Historical Preservation Society. Patricia and I had known each other for 15 years through park board work and county committees and 2 separate garden tours. She had been asking me for nearly a decade whether I had ever considered registering my garden as a heritage landscape. It was one of the oldest continuously tended private gardens in the county. It contained 3 specimen trees that the state arborist had already cataloged in his survey records. It had a documented horticultural history going back to 1984. I told Patricia I was ready to have that conversation. She was in my kitchen the very next Tuesday morning with a folder of her own. The second call was to Louise Chen, my attorney. Louise had handled Robert's estate with great care, and I trusted her completely. I called and told her what I wanted to do. She listened without interrupting, which is one of the things I appreciate about her. When I finished, she said, "Margaret, this is one of the most elegant things I have ever been asked to help with." We met the following Thursday. What I was setting up was a charitable land trust. I would donate the property, house and grounds both, to the County Historical Land Conservancy. In exchange, I would receive a life estate, meaning I could live in the house for as long as I chose to remain. I would also receive a substantial charitable tax benefit that would allow me to fund a comfortable next chapter whenever I was ready for one. After my tenancy ended, the property would open to the public as a heritage garden, preserved in perpetuity. And it would be named the Robert Allen Whitmore Memorial Garden. Because that was my husband's name, and he had earned the right to be remembered somewhere beautiful. Louise drew up the paperwork in 3 weeks. Patricia's board voted to accept the gift in 2. I signed everything on a bright Wednesday morning in June, with Louise beside me and Patricia across the table, and a county notary named Jerry who complimented my wisteria on the way in and said his grandmother had grown it too. I did not tell Daniel. Our Sunday calls continued as warm as ever. I asked about his work. I listened to Courtney's home renovation updates. I said nothing to alarm anyone. I felt, during those weeks, something I had not felt since before Robert's diagnosis. I felt completely in control of my own life. Then Daniel called to say he and Courtney would love to come for a visit. Could they bring a colleague? A man named Greg, who was very interested in the neighborhood. Could they come the following Saturday? I said of course. I told him I would make lunch. They arrived at 11:30. Daniel and Courtney, and a man in a very good suit who introduced himself as Greg Whitmore. His handshake was the handshake of someone who has purchased many things. He looked at my house, the way people look at things they have already decided belong to them. I served iced tea on the back porch. I had made finger sandwiches and a small plate of lemon bars. I had put out the good napkins. I was wearing my good earrings. Greg Whitmore stood at the porch railing and looked at the garden. He said it was a remarkable amount of land. He said the location was exceptional. He said, in a tone that was clearly meant to be kind, that it must be an enormous challenge for one person to maintain. I said I found it a joy, actually. Always had. Daniel cleared his throat. He said that Greg's company worked with families in situations like ours, where a property had grown beyond what one person could reasonably manage. He said Greg would love to walk through the garden if I was open to that, and talk about what my options might look like. I looked at my son. He had his father's eyes and his father's jaw, and somewhere inside him, I still believed his father's basic decency, buried under a great deal of impatience. I felt something that surprised me. Not anger. Something more like sadness, and more like love, and more like resolve, all at the same time. I said, "Daniel, I'm so glad you came today. And Mr. Whitmore, thank you for making the drive. But I have to be honest with you both. This property is no longer mine to discuss." The porch went very quiet. Greg Whitmore set down his iced tea. Daniel said, "What do you mean, not yours to discuss?" I said, "I donated it 6 weeks ago." The house and grounds are now held in a charitable land trust with the County Historical Land Conservancy. I have a life estate, which means I will live here for as long as I choose. After that, it opens to the public as a heritage garden. It has already been named. It is named for your father. Courtney made a sound I could not quite identify. Something between a word and not a word. Daniel said, "Mom, that's not." I said, "It is." Louise Chen handled the paperwork. It is fully executed and recorded with the county clerk's office. There is nothing to walk through and nothing to discuss, and I wanted you to hear that from me directly as a courtesy. I reached into the canvas tote beside my chair, and I took out a manila folder. I set it on the porch table. Inside was a copy of the deed of trust, Patricia's acceptance letter on the Conservancy letterhead, and the county recording stamp. I had also placed, near the back of the folder, a printed copy of the email from Greg Whitmore that had been accidentally routed to my address. I did not say anything about the email. I left it for Daniel to find himself. Greg Whitmore found the folder first. He opened it, looked at the deed, looked at his own email. He closed it carefully. He stood up and put on his jacket. He said it had been a genuine pleasure to meet me. He shook my hand with the same handshake as before, but something had gone out of it. He walked around the side of the house to the driveway and he left. He did not finish his lemon bar. Daniel and I sat on the porch for a long time. Courtney had gone inside. The wisteria moved in a small breeze. A bee worked its way through the salvia bed below the railing, very focused on its own business, which I respected. Finally, Daniel said, "Mom, I was trying to take care of you." I said, "I know you believe that." He said, "What do you want me to say?" I said, "Nothing today. Today, I want you to sit with me for a little while and look at your father's garden. Then I want you to go home and think, really think, about what you were doing and what this place means and what I mean. And when you are ready to talk to me as a person who makes her own decisions, you call me. I will always answer." He did look at the garden for a long time without speaking. And then he stood and he hugged me briefly and he left. The garden officially opened to the public the following April. There was a small ceremony by the gate. Patricia gave remarks. Louise was there in a yellow dress. Helen from next door brought a casserole, because Helen brings a casserole to every occasion of emotional significance in my life, and I would not have it any other way. A stonemason installed a granite marker near the wisteria, just where I had asked. It read, Robert Allen Whitmore, 1947 to 2022. Below that, a line I had chosen from a letter he wrote me on our 20th anniversary. He tended what he loved. That first public day, close to 300 people came. Families with strollers. Retired couples walking slowly arm in arm. A school group that spent 40 minutes sitting under the specimen oak, listening to their teacher explain the difference between native and cultivated plant species. I stood at the gate in my good coat, and I talked to every single person who stopped. About 8 months later, I bought a 2-bedroom apartment in the Arts District. Bright windows on the 3rd floor. A small terrace where I've already started 3 container gardens. A farmer's market 2 blocks away on Saturday mornings. I had wanted to live downtown for 15 years and had convinced myself it was not sensible. It turns out it is extremely sensible, and I should have done it sooner. Daniel called about 2 months after that long Saturday on the porch. He apologized. It was not a perfect apology. There was some language in it about intentions, but the heart of it was real. He came to the garden opening in April. He stood at his father's marker for a long time without saying anything. I stood beside him for part of that time, and then I went to greet my other guests, and I let him have the rest of it alone. We are finding our way back to each other. Slowly. With intention. Like a garden. Last week, a woman stopped me at the gate. She was maybe 45, there with her elderly mother, and she was looking at the wisteria the way you look at something unexpectedly beautiful. She asked me if I knew whose garden it had been. I told her it had been mine, and my husband's, and now it was everyone's. She said that must have been so hard to let go. I thought about the appraiser's card on my kitchen counter. I thought about the email in the folder. I thought about Louise saying it was the most elegant thing she had ever been asked to do. I thought about Robert's gloves in the drawer and the green Adirondack chair and my son's face when he stood at his father's name in the stone. I said it was the easiest thing I ever did. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to protect something precious from the people who thought they knew better than you? I would love to hear your story. The voicemail was 43 seconds long. I know because I played it 4 times. My son's voice, careful and rehearsed, telling me I wouldn't be coming to Portugal with the family. We need this to just be us, Mom. Renee thinks it's important for the kids to bond with her side. I set my coffee cup down on the counter very slowly. It was 6:47 in the morning, and I was still in my bathrobe. Let me take you back to how it all started. My name is Dorothy. I am 72 years old. For 31 years, I worked as a certified public accountant in Tampa, Florida. I ran my own practice for the last 14 of those years, with 3 employees and a client list that included 2 medical groups, a property management company, and more small business owners than I could count. Numbers have always made sense to me in a way that people sometimes don't. I lost my husband Gerald 3 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. 4 months from diagnosis to gone, and in those 4 months I held his hand through every appointment, managed his medications, negotiated with the insurance company, and kept the house running. Because that is what you do. When Gerald passed, I handled the estate myself. Every account, every transfer, every document. I did it in 4 months, and I did it correctly. Our son Marcus called me 6 weeks after the funeral. He lives in Chicago with his wife Renee and their 2 children, my grandchildren Lily and James. Lily was 6 then, and James was 4, and they are the most marvelous little people. Marcus said, "Mom, come be near us. You shouldn't be down there alone." He sounded so sincere. He sounded like the boy I raised. I sold the Tampa house that spring. It went above asking in 4 days, which I will admit gave me a small private satisfaction. I put the proceeds into a money market account and moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Evanston, 12 minutes from Marcus and Renee's house. I told myself this was the beginning of something good. For a while it was. The first year, I had Lily and James 2 afternoons a week. That was the arrangement, Marcus, and I agreed on coffee mugs on my kitchen table, a handshake, a good plan. But by the following spring, it had quietly become 4 afternoons, sometimes 5. Renee traveled for work. She owned a clothing boutique with real buying trips that added up. Marcus had evening client dinners that ran late. I never said no, because I love those children the way you love something that is simply part of your own body. But small things started to gather, the way they do. Renee stopped asking. She would simply send a text at 2 in the afternoon. Can you grab the kids today? No question mark. Not always even that. Sometimes it was just, kids need pickup. THX. I want to be fair, she was busy, and I had said yes every single time. But there is a difference between someone who asks and someone who assumes, and the difference matters even when the answer would have been the same. One Sunday in March, I came to their house for dinner and spent the better part of the evening up and down from the table getting things from the kitchen. More bread. Another serving spoon. The salad dressing Renee had forgotten to put out. Each time I got up, I looked back at the table and noticed that no one offered to go instead. Marcus was deep in a story about a work project. Renee was on her phone for a stretch I stopped counting. When I finally sat down for good, James looked at me with his big brown eyes and said, "Grandma, how come you always look tired?" I laughed. I said, "I'm not tired, sweetheart. I'm just experienced." Nobody else said anything. That's when I started paying closer attention. In October, Marcus came to my apartment alone. He sat at my kitchen table with his hands folded and told me Renee had found a space for a second boutique location. He asked if I would consider investing in the expansion. I asked to see the financials. He said they were still being pulled together. I asked about projected revenue and the lease structure. He said he'd get back to me on the details. I told him I would think about it and that I'd want to review any documents before making a decision. 2 weeks later, I wrote him a check. He is my son and I have means, and the boutique genuinely was doing well. Renee had real instincts about her customers. But I did one thing Marcus didn't expect. I wrote up a promissory note. Clean and simple, the kind I had drafted dozens of times for clients who needed to borrow from family without ruining the relationship. A repayment schedule, a signature line, correct legal language. Marcus signed it at this very table. He gave a small laugh when he picked up the pen, like it was a charming formality from his old-fashioned mother. I put my copy in a folder and filed it in my top desk drawer. I didn't know yet how much that folder would end up mattering. The Portugal conversation happened at Renee's birthday dinner in January. I had arrived early to help set up, the way I always did. 8 people around their dining room table, Renee's parents visiting from Cincinnati, her sister, our mutual friends June and Albert. Good food, good wine, the kind of evening that should have been easy. At some point, Renee looked at her phone, looked at Marcus, and announced that her parents had decided to join the family trip to Lisbon in the spring. Then she turned down the table toward me. There was a pause. Just a beat too long. Just long enough for everyone at that table to feel it. "Dorothy," she said, "we're going to have to keep this one to Renee's family and our immediate unit. The logistics are just getting complicated. I know you understand." I looked at her. I smiled. I have a very good smile. "Of course," I said. Her sister looked at her plate. Her father looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at the centerpiece. I stayed for the cake. I complimented the dessert and said my goodbyes and drove home in the dark. I sat in my car in the parking garage for a while before going upstairs. Not because I was devastated, I have lived through things that would devastate a lesser woman. I sat there because I was thinking. And something about the quality of my thinking that night felt different. Sharper. More patient. My friend Carol Hutchins and I have been meeting for coffee every Thursday morning since I moved to Evanston. Carol spent 30 years working in the school district, and she has that particular gift for absorbing information without trying to. She knows this town the way water knows the bottom of a riverbed. She is not a gossip. She tells you things only when they matter. One Thursday in February, Carol came in from the cold and sat down across from me and folded her hands on the table the way she does when she has something difficult to say. She told me she had been at a party the aldermans hosted, a couple who ran in both our circles, and that Marcus had been there. During the evening, Carol had overheard Marcus tell a man she didn't recognize that he had been helping manage his mother's finances since his father passed. Because she was still adjusting. Because she was not always sharp about these things. I sat very still. Carol said the man had nodded sympathetically and said something about how hard it could be when parents reached a certain stage. Marcus had not corrected him. What Carol told me next stopped me cold. She said Renee had been telling at least 2 other women at the same party that she and Marcus were keeping a close eye on my accounts, that I had become, in Renee's telling, a little forgetful. I drove home with both hands on the wheel and the radio off the entire way. I thought about the promissory note in my desk drawer. I thought about Marcus signing it with that small, indulgent laugh. I thought about what a guardianship proceeding looks like, because I had seen one up close once during my practice years. The way a family builds a narrative gradually, a concerned comment here, a worried sigh there, until the narrative has real weight and real legal consequences. And then I thought, I spent 31 years knowing exactly what to do with a problem. I made 3 phone calls that afternoon. I told no one what I was doing. The first call was to Robert Feynman. Robert is an estate attorney who was my client for 11 years and my friend for longer than that. I told him everything Carol had told me. He listened without interrupting once. When I finished, he said, "Dorothy, come in Thursday." I said, "I'll be there Wednesday." Robert helped me establish a revocable living trust. My assets moved into it cleanly. I was named sole trustee. For my successor trustee, I chose Beverly, my college roommate, retired now in Scottsdale, who has more practical good sense than anyone else I know. The structure was airtight. Documented, witnessed, properly signed. Robert showed me every page, and I read every page, because I always read every page. The second call was to my accountant. I requested a complete financial summary. Every account, every asset, every figure, organized and printed and stamped. The kind of document that makes it immediately clear to anyone who examines it that there is nothing here that needs managing, and never has been. The third call was to Beverly. I said, "Bev, I think I'm ready to move to Scottsdale." She went quiet for just a moment. Then she said, "Dorothy." I have been waiting 3 years for those words. I flew out for a long weekend in March. Beverly drove me around in her little white convertible with the top down in 68-degree sunshine and showed me a new development not far from her neighborhood. The model unit had a master bedroom with a large window that looked straight out at the mountains. I sat on the floor of that empty room for 10 minutes. Just sat there in the afternoon light. I made an offer before I flew home. But there was one more thing to take care of before I left Chicago. I went to the post office on a Tuesday morning. I sent Marcus a certified letter, formally calling in the promissory note. 30 days for repayment, as the document specified. Every word was legally correct. Robert had reviewed it twice. I handed the envelope to the postal clerk, received my stamped receipt, and walked out into the gray February air feeling, for the first time in months, completely like myself. Then I went home, put a pot roast in the oven, and invited Marcus and Renee to Sunday dinner. Marcus's favorite meal has been pot roast since he was 9 years old. I made it low and slow the way I always have, and I set the table the way my mother taught me: good plates, cloth napkins, the glasses without smudges. When Marcus and Renee arrived, Renee was wearing her long wool coat 2 minutes longer than she needed to inside the apartment. She does that when she's uncertain. I had noticed it before. We sat down. I poured the wine. I asked about Lily's soccer tournament and James's new chapter book. We were nearly pleasant. The roast was good and there was bread, and for a little while it might have looked, to anyone watching, like an ordinary family Sunday. Then Marcus set down his fork. "Mom," he said, "we got a letter." "I know." I said, "I sent it." He looked at Renee, then back at me. "Is this about Portugal?" "Because we've been meaning to." "Marcus," I said, "this is not about Portugal." I excused myself from the table and brought the folder from the sideboard. Inside were two things: Robert's clean one-page financial summary and the certified mail receipt from the post office. I set the closed folder in front of Marcus without a word. He opened it. He turned the pages. His face moved through several things in the space of about 30 seconds. "The loan is due in 30 days. I said pleasantly, "I assume that's manageable." Renee said, "Dorothy, we don't have $20,000 liquid right now. Robert can work out a repayment schedule with you." I said, "But the note is being called. That part is not open for discussion." Marcus looked up at me. "Mom, what is happening right now? Why are you doing this?" I put my hands in my lap and looked at my son. I thought about driving him to soccer practice in the rain for 6 straight years. About sitting up past midnight waiting for his headlights in the driveway when he was 17 and running late. About the morning I got on a plane with 4 hours notice to be in that hospital when Lily was born. "I've been told," I said, "that you've been explaining to people that you manage my finances. Because I'm still adjusting. Because I'm not always sharp." The silence that followed was the loudest thing I had heard in a very long time. Renee started to speak. I raised one hand just slightly. She stopped. "I spent 31 years as a certified public accountant." I said, "I built a practice from nothing. I managed Gerald's entire estate by myself, correctly, in 4 months, while I was grieving my husband. I am not forgetful. I am not in need of supervision. I am 72 years old, and I am in complete possession of every faculty I have ever had." Marcus said, "Mom, I didn't mean it like that." "I believe you." I said, and I did. I think it started as something small, a way to seem useful at a party, or to explain why his mother had made him sign a promissory note like a real borrower. People sometimes make themselves a little larger, by quietly making the people they love a little smaller. I don't think Marcus meant to build what he built, but he built it. I'm moving to Scottsdale. I said, I close on the condo in 8 weeks. Beverly is nearby. I have a good doctor, an attorney I trust, and a financial picture that has always been and remains perfectly clear. Everything is in order. Renee looked at the tablecloth. Marcus said very quietly, "What about Lily and James?" Lily and James will come visit their grandmother in the desert. I said, and I will love every single minute of it. But Marcus, I need a life that belongs to me, not a supporting role in someone else's story. Mine. We had coffee after dinner. It was not warm exactly, but it was honest. And between the two, I have learned to choose the one that lasts. Marcus called me 4 times in the week that followed. The first call was half defensive, explaining what he had meant and hadn't meant. The second was more genuinely sorry. By the third, he was just talking, the way he used to call me from college when something went sideways and he needed to think out loud with someone who wouldn't judge him. I had missed that version of my son more than I had let myself know. Renee sent me a text. She said she wanted to apologize in person and that she hadn't understood how things looked from where I was standing. I appreciated the honesty of looked. She was still protecting something, but I accepted it anyway. Dignity does not require perfection from other people. It only requires it from yourself. The loan repayments started on the 15th of the month, just as we'd agreed, and have come on time every month since. Some things simply go better with documentation. I closed on the Scottsdale condo on a Thursday in April. Beverly brought champagne and 2 glasses, and we sat on the floor of the empty bedroom again, in the afternoon light from the mountain window, and we toasted to second chapters and to women who know their own worth. Lily and James flew out for spring break. James stood on the balcony for a long time watching a hawk circle slowly above the ridge. He said the desert looked like another planet. Lily found a lizard on the patio tiles and named him Gerald without me saying a single word about it. I went into the kitchen and cried the good kind of tears, quietly, over the sink. Marcus and I talk every Sunday now. He calls at 10 in the morning Chicago time, which is 8 here, and I'm usually already on the balcony with my coffee. We talk about the kids, about his work, about whatever is happening in the world. Renee gets on sometimes, and we talk about the boutique, which is growing. They said Portugal was beautiful. I told them I was genuinely glad it was. The light comes over the mountains differently every single morning. Some days it arrives in gold, and some days in something closer to purple. Gerald always said we'd get out west someday, and we kept putting it off the way you do when you believe time is something you can always earn more of later. I earned every piece of what I have now. This condo, this quiet, these Sunday mornings, this life on my own terms. Nobody handed it to me, and nobody is taking it. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to remind someone, very calmly, of exactly who you are? My son was standing in front of my quilt, the one I had spent 6 months stitching by hand, and his shoulders were shaking. He was crying. Not the polite kind of crying you do at funerals. The real kind, where your whole body knows what it's admitting. Let me take you back to how it all started. My name is Alina Whitfield. I am 72 years old, and I have been quilting since I was 27. That is 45 years of fabric, thread, needle, and patience. A great deal of patience. My late husband, Gerald, used to call me the thread keeper. He said it like it was a real title, the kind you put on a business card. Like being a thread keeper was the most important thing a person could be in this world. Maybe he was right. Gerald was right about more things than he ever let on, and I say that as someone who was married to him for 41 years. I made a quilt for every occasion that mattered in our family. When Daniel was born, I made a pale blue one with tiny sailboats, because Gerald had always dreamed of living near water, even though we spent our entire lives in Columbus, Ohio, 500 miles from any ocean. The sailboats were a little bit for Daniel and a little bit for Gerald. I made one for Daniel's first Christmas, a red and white pinwheel pattern that I still believe is among the finest things I have ever made. When Daniel married Melissa, I spent 8 months on their wedding quilt. Ivory background, sage green accents, and interlocking rings pattern across every inch of it. Her colors. I had asked her specifically what she wanted. She said ivory and sage. I gave her something I thought she would keep for the rest of her life. Then I made quilts for each of my grandchildren when they were born. Lily first, then Owen, then baby James. Every one of them hand-stitched, every one designed from scratch, every one carried a piece of me with it when it left my sewing room. I want you to understand all of that before I tell you what happened next. It started small, the way these things always do. Christmas 3 years ago, Melissa was giving her mother a tour of the house. I was in the kitchen slicing the bourbon pecan pie that Daniel has asked for every Christmas since he was 14 years old. I could hear them in the living room. Melissa's mother asked about the quilt draped over the armchair. The ivory and sage green wedding quilt. Melissa said, "Oh, that's one of Aliner's projects." As she quilts, you know how older women get with their hobbies. Her mother made a small, agreeable sound. Imhem. I kept slicing the pie. I told myself it was a thoughtless comment. Everyone says thoughtless things in the middle of a busy holiday. I had certainly said thoughtless things in my time. I was not going to make something out of nothing. But I noticed, after that Christmas, that the wedding quilt was gone from the armchair. It was not in the guest room. It was not folded on the couch. When I mentioned it to Daniel later, he said he thought it was probably in storage. He did not seem troubled. I did not press it. Then the birthday parties started to change. Lily turned 8 that April. 3 days before, I received a text from Daniel. He said they were keeping it small this year, just Melissa's side, that Melissa got overwhelmed by too many people. He said they would do something separate with me the following weekend. The following weekend never came. What I found on Melissa's social media page told me everything I needed to know. 47 photographs from Lily's birthday. Aunts and uncles, cousins, second cousins, all 4 of Melissa's parents' grandchildren, neighbors I had never met, and a clown I was fairly certain cost more than my monthly electric bill. A 3-tiered cake. Lily in a purple dress, laughing, surrounded by people who loved her. It was a beautiful party. I was genuinely glad my granddaughter had it. I just would have liked to be there. I called Daniel that evening. He said it had gotten big and complicated. He said he was sorry I felt left out. He used that word, felt, as though my absence from my granddaughter's birthday were a private sensation I was having rather than a thing that had simply happened. I said I understood. I hung up and went to my sewing room and stitched until nearly midnight. Owen's birthday that September was the same. A text. Small gathering. Just Melissa's people. Then, in April of the following year, Daniel called me with that particular careful tone, the one he gets when Melissa has thought through what he should say. He said they were planning a large cookout in June. Melissa's entire family was flying in from Portland. A whole weekend. He said the house would be very full. He said they wanted to keep it to immediate family. I said, Daniel, I am your immediate family. There was a silence on the line. You know what I means, Mom. I made him say it anyway. We mean Melissa's family for this one. It's just easier that way. I said, I understand. And I ended the call. I am 72 years old. I have buried my husband. I have held this family together through things I will not go into here. I did not shout. I did not weep. I sat at my kitchen table, and I looked at the wall in front of me for 10 full minutes without moving. Then I opened my computer. I am not entirely sure what I was looking for. Perhaps just something to do with my hands that was not picking up the phone and saying things I would spend the rest of my life regretting. I typed in Melissa's name and found her online shop. I already knew about it. She sold small soy candles with pressed wildflowers inside them and printed greeting cards. I had bought things from that shop 3 times to be a supportive mother-in-law, because that is the kind of woman I try to be. But there was a new section in the shop that I had never seen before. Vintage artisan textiles. There were 9 listings. My heart went somewhere strange when I saw the first photograph. It was the wedding quilt, the ivory and sage green one. 8 months of my life in cot, linen, and thread. Listed for $480. The description read, stunning vintage handmade quilt, artisan crafted, heirloom quality, one of a kind. One of a kind. Yes. Because I designed it. I drafted the pattern on graph paper in my kitchen. I chose every fabric at the shop on 5th Street that has since closed. I stitched every inch of it by hand. And I gave it to them as a wedding gift because I loved my son and I wanted to love his wife. I scrolled very slowly through the remaining 8 listings. I recognized every piece. There were 2 baby quilts, one of which I had actually made for my neighbor's new granddaughter and given to Melissa to deliver when I had the flu. Apparently, it had never arrived. There were 5 quilts I had made as gifts over the years. Christmas presents, a housewarming gift, small expressions of love that had apparently been sitting in a storage box until someone decided they were worth money. 2 of the listings were marked sold. My hands were not entirely steady when I took the screenshots. But my mind was clearer, I think, than it had been in years. Sharper. Like a needle that has finally found its thread. I did not call Daniel. I did not message Melissa. I closed the laptop and went to bed, and I lay in the dark listening to the house settle around me the way old houses do, all creaks and sighs, and I thought about what Gerald would say. Gerald would say, Alina, the way you respond to people who underestimate you is to show them, slowly and completely, exactly what they missed. All right, Gerald. All right. I went to my sewing room the next morning. The quilt on my frame was a large flying geese pattern in blues and golds. I had been making it for Daniel and Melissa's living room, because even then, even after all of it, I was still making things for people who had stopped making space for me. I took it off the frame. I folded it with care and set it on the shelf. Then I sat down and I made a plan. The first thing I did was call my friend Ruthann. We have been friends for 31 years, and she spent 3 decades as a paralegal before she retired. She has the kind of mind that does not miss things. She came over the next morning with coffee and reading glasses and sat down at my kitchen table, and I showed her everything on the screen. She leaned back slowly. She said, "Eleanor, these are your original designs. You have documentation. I have been photographing my quilts since 1989. Albums, physical and digital, going back over 3 decades. Every quilt I have ever made, photographed, dated, with notes about the fabrics and the person it was made for." Gerald used to tease me about it. He said I was more meticulous about my quilts than most accountants are about their books. He was not wrong. And those records were about to matter more than I had ever imagined they would. Ruthann and I spent 4 hours at that table. She explained what I needed to know about original creative work and documentation. We drafted a formal complaint together, attached my photographs with their dates, and filed it with the marketplace that same afternoon. The marketplace responded in 48 hours. All 9 listings were removed. 2 buyers who had already received items were notified. The textile section of the shop was flagged for review. I received a confirmation that the matter was under investigation. I did not forward any of that to Daniel. Not yet. The second thing I did was call the Regional Textile Arts Center. My friend Dorothy had shown her work there twice over the years. Every time she came back glowing, I had said maybe next year, maybe when I have enough ready, maybe when the time feels right. On a Wednesday morning, I picked up the phone and called. The curator was a young woman named Sarah. She had the kind of voice that makes you feel she is truly listening, which I have found is rarer than it ought to be. I told her I had 45 years of work, and I thought it was time to show it. She said, "Could you come on Thursday? I would very much like to see what you have." I brought 3 finished quilts, rolled in acid-free tissue, and a portfolio of photographs. Sarah walked from piece to piece, and she was quiet for a long time. That is always a good sign. People who talk immediately are filling silence. People who go still are actually looking. When she finally turned to me, she said, "Mrs. Whitfield, why have we not seen your work before now?" I said, I suppose I was busy making things for other people. She offered me 12 hanging spaces in the June exhibition. Opening night would be the 15th, the same weekend as the cookout in Portland. I did not say a word about that. The third thing I did was write a letter to my son. Not a text, not an email. A handwritten letter on the cream stationery Gerald gave me the last Christmas we had together, the paper I use only when the words truly matter. I wrote that I loved Daniel. I wrote that I hoped we could find time to talk when he was ready. I wrote that I would be showing my work at the Regional Textile Arts Exhibition on the evening of June 15th, and I would be very glad if he came. I did not mention the online shop. I did not raise my voice on paper. I signed it with "Love, Mom." I sealed it, put a stamp on it, and walked it to the mailbox myself. Then I got back to work. I finished the flying geese quilt for myself, adding a medallion center I had been sketching for years but never found time to make. I completed a cathedral windows piece in rose and burgundy that Sarah had particularly admired in my photographs. Dorothy and Ruth Ann came with me to hang everything, and we spent 6 hours in that gallery, measuring and adjusting and stepping back and arguing pleasantly about the angle of the light. It felt like the most purposeful 6 hours I had spent in as long as I could remember. Opening night was a warm Saturday in June. I wore my burgundy blazer and my pearl earrings. My neighbor Pat tucked a small bunch of lavender from her garden into my hand when I arrived. Several women from my Thursday quilting circle came dressed up, and they walked through the exhibition slowly and quietly, the way you walk through a place that deserves attention. A writer from the local paper asked to photograph me beside the cathedral windows piece. A woman from a textile arts organization in Columbus pressed her card into my hand and said she wanted to talk about a lecture series. At 7:30, I looked toward the entrance and saw Daniel. He came alone. He stood just inside the doorway and looked at the room. Then he found my face across the gallery, and he looked at the walls, and something moved across his expression that I recognized from a very long time ago. He had the same look he had at 10 years old, the day he came home and discovered I had organized his entire baseball card collection and realized, for the first time, that I had known exactly what I was doing all along. He walked slowly around the gallery. He stopped at each piece. He spent the longest time at a small quilt in the far corner, a log cabin pattern in amber and rust and deep red that I had made for him the autumn he left for college. He had given it back to me when he moved in with Melissa. Said he had nowhere to put it. It was hanging in a gallery now, with a small card beside it bearing his name and the year I made it. I did not go to him. I let him look. I waited. He came to me at last. His eyes were red, and he made no attempt to hide it. "Mom," he said, "I didn't know it was like this." "I know you didn't." "The shop." He stopped. He swallowed. "I got your letter and I went looking, and I found it, and I asked her about it, and she said those quilts were just sitting in storage. She said she didn't think you'd ever want them back." I looked at him steadily. "Daniel, I made those quilts. I designed every one. I have photographs of every piece I have ever made, going back 30 years. Did she think I would not recognize my own work?" He had nothing to say to that. "There are 2 things I need you to hear," I said. "The first is that what Melissa did has consequences she has to address herself. The marketplace removed her listings. 2 people paid money for items that were misrepresented to them. That is hers to make right. I am not asking you to fix it for her." He nodded once. "The second thing is simpler. I want to be part of my grandchildren's lives. Not as a visitor. Not on a schedule that changes whenever it's inconvenient. As their grandmother. Lily is reading chapter books now. Owen is starting Little League. James is 3 years old, and I have missed things I am never getting back." There was a long pause. "That's fair, Mom," he said quietly. "That's completely fair." We stood there in that gallery, under warm lights, with 45 years of my work on every wall around us, and my son put his arms around me and held on the way he used to when he was very small and something had frightened him. I let him hold on for as long as he needed. Melissa called me 3 days later. It was not an easy call for either of us. She apologized. She said she had not thought of it as taking something. She said she believed the quilts were just sitting unused. She said she was sorry. I said, "You sold what I made with my own hands, stitch by stitch, as a gift. Do you understand why that is different from selling something that actually belongs to you?" She was quiet. Then she said yes, she understood. I believe she meant it. She refunded both buyers herself. She closed the textile section of her shop permanently. She sent me a note, handwritten on her own good stationery, and I kept it because keeping records is simply what I do. I did not tell anyone else in the family what had happened. That was not mine to spread around. What happened between Melissa and her conscience was between them. What changed was everything around it. Lily and Owen began coming to my house on Thursday afternoons. I taught them to sew. Simple things at first: straight seams, threading a needle, how to cut fabric so it stays true. Owen made a zippered bag for his baseball cards. Lily made a pillowcase in purple fabric, printed with tiny yellow suns. They sat at my work table and asked questions, and ate the snickerdoodles I made, and those Thursday afternoons became, without question, the best part of my week. Baby James comes with them. He is 3 years old, and his primary contribution is to tangle thread and settle himself into the pile of fabric scraps like a small king surveying his lands. He does this with considerable dignity. Daniel started calling on Sunday mornings. Actual phone calls, not texts. We talk about the grandchildren and his garden, and what we are reading, and sometimes about Gerald. Those calls are the ones I look forward to most. The exhibition ran 6 weeks. 3 of my quilts sold. The flying geese piece went to a collector from out of town. The cathedral windows piece went to a woman in Cincinnati who said she had been looking for something like it for 10 years. The only quilt I did not sell was the one I would never sell. The pale blue one with the tiny sailboats. The first thing I ever made for Daniel. Gerald's ocean quilt. Sarah asked, very gently, if I would consider donating it to the center's permanent collection. I thought about Gerald. The way he said threadkeeper every single time, his whole life, like he wanted to make sure I never forgot what I was. I said yes. The Columbus Lecture Series invited me to speak in October. I talked about patience. I talked about the difference between making something beautiful and making something that lasts. I talked about how the stitches that hold a quilt together are the same as the ones that hold a family together, if you are willing to do the slow, careful work. A woman came up to me afterward and asked, "How do you hold on to faith in people after they let you down?" I thought about my sewing room at 2 in the morning, and the cold cup of tea on the side table, and Gerald's voice somewhere just behind my thoughts. "You do the next right stitch." I said, and then the one after that. Eventually you look up and you have something whole. I am in my sewing room right now as I tell you this. There is a new quilt on the frame, purple and gold in Lily's favorite colors this year, though I fully expect she will have moved on to something else entirely before I finish it. That is the thing about grandchildren. You have to stitch fast to keep up. It keeps you young, or something close enough to it. I do not know that everything will always be fine between all of us. Melissa and I are not close, and I have made my peace with the idea that we may never be. But we are honest with each other now, and courteous, and I have found that honesty is a far more durable foundation than the pretending we were doing before. What I know is this: I spent 45 years making things by hand, stitch by careful stitch, and I very nearly let someone convince me it was nothing. Just what older women do. Don't you let anyone do that to you. Don't you let anyone name your gifts for you. Tell me in the comments, has someone you loved ever dismissed something you were proud of, and how did you find your way back to yourself?